Yo, good looks to dreadsock.com for sponsoring this episode of Real Notes. Anyone who has curly or locked hair like me knows how sacred a good hair wrap is. A do-rag, a wave cap, a scarf, a bandana, a bonnet, you name it. Dreadsock goes a step beyond the average with silk-based head wraps that offer full protection and frizz control for curls from 2A to 4C. They're made of a blend of breathable materials to help retain hair's moisture and preserve hairstyles enough to ensure a few less trips to the salon, all held down with an elastic band strong enough to withstand even the most aggressive head trips. Whether you wear one to bed or wear one on the go, Dread Sock will have you looking fresh and full. Socks come in all sizes, from shorties for short hair and beginner twists to extra large for the longer locked folks out there. Look, y'all, I've been growing my locks for nearly 2 decades and have been a loyal Dread Sock customer for 15 years. So when I tell you these shits work, I'm dead ass. Plus, they're an independent, black-owned business that's worth the time and energy. So go to dreadsock.com and use promo code CineMasai, that's CineMasai, for 10% off your first order. They won't fall off in your sleep, but they will keep you looking fresh. Thanks again to Dreadsock for sponsoring the episode. Now let's keep this shit moving. What's good, y'all? My name is Dylan Green, and this is Real Notes, a space dedicated to blurring the cultural and artistic lines between rap and film. I'm here to chop it up with everyone from rappers and producers to journalists and video directors about their relationship to movies and how, if at all, film inspires their craft. My guest this week is Los Angeles-based rapper, producer, poet, teacher, and multi-instrumentalist Rhys Langston. We spoke about kung fu films, Warrior, Jet Li, The Matrix, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the nature of meta-narratives, balancing entertainment with knowledge, pulling inspiration from the Migos and others, and the creative process behind his latest project to operate this system, produced by Pioneer 11. Come fuck with us. What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to a not live but very direct episode of Real Notes. Before we formally get started, I just wanted to thank everyone who came to the live one we did in Brooklyn with Sharif and Dove. It turned out amazing. We had a nice crowd. Popcorn was popped. Photos were taken. They're not available yet, but they hopefully will be soon. Hopefully we'll do another one. But yeah, that was like a big ass proof of concept that y'all really showed me is a thing that we could do. So thank you. It means a lot. Go listen to the live one. Sharif talks about Ninja Turtles. It's a treat. But today, Dylan Green, CineMasai, got a lot of names, do a lot of shit, be around. I'm with somebody who has quite a few names and does way more shit than I could ever possibly imagine. I don't know how he has the time in the world. I don't know where he finds the time to do all the things he does for himself and his well-being and his just like artistry. Man's a fucking rapper, producer, painter, poet, artist, fellowship member, cat haver. He's a lot of things, but more than anything, he's Rhys Langston, and he's here, and he's here with us. And yeah, nah, man, like I told you off camera, it's been a long time coming. Thank you so much for being here. Like the music and the art's been well received over here, so I'm really excited to break some of this down with you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm all, like glad to see your star shine. As we've been knowing each other, I feel like there's been like a mutual, our collective, incline, to what we've been doing and a nice arc and everything. So it's cool that you foreground all the different disciplines and shit, because music is and that's what this is. It's cross media, cross discipline type conversations, and I just I always love talking about ideas. Ideas are the important thing, and how we translate them is really that's really the interesting part. The part that is subject to like mystery and kind of shit you don't know until it comes out. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little open right now, open-minded. So my words might be a little floaty. We'll see.
Nah, let's go. But yeah, no, I'm happy you said that, because like that's why you've been someone that I've been really excited to have on here, because you're already you're already at the intersection of so many different styles of art. And just like reading, and like I was just reading over your LA Times interview again, and just like all the shit that you go through in there and all the stuff that you do. Like I said, man, like you're everywhere. Like I mean, like partially out of necessity, but also just because like you're just that type of dude, and it's very exciting to see you. It's exciting to just see you get a look in a place like the LA Times. Like that's nuts. Like congratulations on that. And just like, yeah, it's just good to like you just feel very well suited to a thing like this, which is basically what I think you were saying anyway. So like, yeah, like this is gonna be a treat. I could tell already.
I know. Last night I think I added another thing to my another like notch to my belt, feather in my cap. I played clarinet and like did live looping electronics at a free jazz ambient show.
How was that?
With
That's
like
crazy.
best woodwind and brass players in the city, if not the country. It was crazy. Like I was like, why are you guys asking me to do this? Because I picked up the clarinet 2 years ago. But it was really encouraging. Like, okay, I will follow through on things, no matter what it is. It might not be great, but I'll at least follow through, and the follow through connected. The swing connected or whatever. So that's crazy. Like that was fun. So all under the umbrella of what we're talking about, just being like, fuck it, anything goes.
That's incredible. Like that's like, like it's I imagine that was pretty spontaneous, and spontaneity is where a lot of the best art and just really just like any kind of expression period, like a lot of the best shit spontaneous, because that's really, more often than not, that's really what's on your mind. So it really translates, and it's pure, and like not super like labored over type shit. So.
Oh yeah, I'm an editor.
Me too.
Better or worse, I'm an editor. Yeah.
Oh, it's facts. But yeah, let me ask you the first question I ask everybody who comes on here, which is what was the last movie or TV show you watched that you had a strong opinion about?
Oh. So I can remember the last one that I watched. The last one that I had a really strong opinion about. I have strong opinions about everything.
That's great.
So honestly, I need to actually, oh shit, I think I'm down on an episode. Watching the show Warrior on HBO Max or Max.
I'm so mad that I haven't like I've had like 6 people tell me I need to start watching it, and tell me about Warrior, please. Like
yeah, so it's interesting because I think it exists in this it has one foot in like kind of campy over the top kind of action, slightly maybe stereotypical, Asian martial arts world or production and thematics. And then it has this other thing that's very interesting where like I feel like it's very much of our time. It has this historical provenance and like background to it, and they're really trying to actually discuss things in history that maybe like are we just don't teach because whatever, this country doesn't teach history regardless. But things like the Chinese Exclusion Act and stuff like that. So it's putting a lot of that in the foreground, alongside this really campy kind of, I guess borderline culturally two-dimensional, kind of like ideas we have about what's authentically, an Asian story and stuff like that. So I think, it just feels very particular, like of our time right now, and it's trying to balance that. I think one thing that they do really interesting is that the characters, the Chinese characters, they speak in like standard or whatever, their own accents to themselves among their characters in their own scenes. And then when they're speaking to like the white characters, they put on the accent that someone might have had who was a recent immigrant at that time, or a recent immigrant. So I'm like, I think that's really interesting because it's like it is subverting a little bit, like the problem that a lot of non-white actors get into, where they have to black up or Asian up or Hispanic up their voice.
Right.
And it's being like, oh, like when you're with your people, you talk whatever, like you're just talking, like there's no affect. But when, you're in a space of the dominant culture, whatever, then that comes into play. It's almost like, I don't know, it feels like something looking in on itself that way. I find that very interesting, that small like technique or that small consideration they did. And I just like martial arts movies, like, like growing up, my brother and I would watch just corny shit. I mean, if you think from like Double Dragon, Mortal Kombat, Drunken Master, shit like that.
Classics, yeah.
A little less corny than, well, not it's a lot less corny than, like Double Dragon and shit. But so yeah, I hope that was, gave some opinions and flavors and stuff.
That's a great answer because, like, I mean, like, I haven't watched much of Warrior, but I've heard a lot about it. My dad's a huge fan. He's always telling me to give it a shot. And like I said, I've talked to a bunch of other homies and friends about it, and they all love it. I'm really, really interested in the accent affect thing you were just talking about. Like the way you were describing it, like it almost sounds kind of like reverse code switching. Like it's like right. Yeah, no, it's like almost like inside out code switching. It's like really strange, like doing it. That's a really cool and interesting idea to me. And it reminded me of I don't know if you watched the second season of why can't I remember what the fucking show is called? The Terrence Nance HBO show.
Random
Acts of Flyness. There it is. Yeah.
They right. Chopped the random off.
Right. Yeah. No. Right.
So I actually saw the first episode, and it was so intense, and I was so into it that I've been waiting to watch the rest of the season. And I haven't found. I think I want to because I'm in like my little studio space right now, and I got some nice speakers. I want to watch it in here, not on like my, TV sound, because obviously also doing the music, musical components to stuff, and just the audio visual, it's very stimulating and very life-giving and weird. Like I haven't gotten to that, but there's a part in that like reminded you of that.
Yeah, like it. Yeah. It's like, but what's it called? It is very intense. It gets more intense and more stimulating and more like I was overstimulated. Like I think I watched like 2-3 episodes at one time, and I like walked away like like I was like a little phased in a good way. It's just like a lot of information, but there's a section or no, like there's like a whole little thing where it's not exactly the same, but it kind of sort of reminded me of it. Like there's white characters in this season, and for a good period of time you don't see their faces or hear their voices. Like their like bodies are there, but like they don't have faces, and you can't see their like facial characteristics or nothing. It's just like they're just there and like not taking up space in this really like just like the point is to like de-emphasize the white people being in the area, which I think is really intriguing. But like
ways to actually represent that physically, like,
right. Yeah, no, like I'd never seen anything like that before, so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like it's like that's a like for anybody who doesn't know, like that's an incredibly challenging like left to center type of thing that I can't believe HBO gave them money to make this show. Like it's one of those, but not to get too far off topic, but I'm really excited to try Warrior out. I'm also big on kung fu martial arts movies. Like not huge, but like I love them. Like if they're on, I'll watch them. Like I love Drunken Master. I love the Jackie Chan police story movies. I mean like fuck the police, but Eat Mine, all those movies. Yeah, no, those movies are great.
I love that one.
Like Donnie Yen drumming out on dude's chest in the dojo is one of the harshest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I always, like, every time I see that, I always wonder if I always wonder if they made it out okay, because like that looked really painful. Like I see it and like I come away like I feel like the ghost pain in my chest. It's kind of awful, but it's
Yeah, I feel that it's the same like question about, you know, wrestlers, like, because they put their they it's choreographed, but it's not fake. They're really taking those hits. So you wonder
right.
the martial artists who do their own stunts, all of them, you know, like feel and how much contact they're making.
Yeah, no, like that shit's like it's like knowing how to take a hit is like that's a skill, you know, like not everybody knows how to take a hit. Like a lot of people know how to hit, but like taking a hit, especially as a performer, is like that shit is real, you know, like whether you're like whether you're like fighting or, you know, like stage fighting is all one thing. And like I've seen like stage combat up close, and it's obviously like, you know, like they're not hitting each other, but like you can tell when people are actually getting the shit kicked out of them, and they just gotta like, okay, do it again. All right, we gotta get it a different angle, like, you know, like that's
Yeah.
intense. Yeah, no, that's really intense. But no, I want to know more details about you with the martial arts shit. So let's run it back to all the way at the beginning. What was the what's the first movie experience you can remember having? It could be at the theater, it could be at your cousin's house. First thing that comes to mind.
I mean, it definitely reflects my West Coast Americanisms, you know. But I think the Mortal Kombat movie, the first Mortal Kombat movie, scared it out of me when I was like 4, maybe 3 or 4. I can't remember. I was young enough to, like, my parents brought me into the. Was it in the theater? I think it might have been in the theater, so that you can see how far back it goes. That I can't quite remember, but I remember. Oh man, what's his face? Shit, I can't remember the problematic ass names that they gave to other people. I know, but the old dude who like steals people's souls.
Oh, Shang Tsung, yeah.
Yeah, he stole someone's soul, and like that shit scared the shit out of me as a toddler, or like, you know, like kindergarten age type kid. So I remember that. And I think, yeah, there was a lot of intersections with like video games, you know, at the time, like Double Dragon. I had a brother who's 5 years older, so he would, you know, was really into that stuff. He would, you know, basically make me watch everything with him. And I can't remember. I think, yeah, I just kept watching a lot of. We didn't have, at my mom's place, my parents separated early. We didn't have cable, so at my dad's house we did. We had direct TV when it was like new, you know.
Yeah.
And like channels you don't know what to do with. So I caught some of the early like, you know, 2000s, late 90s era Jet Li films. You know, before it switched to the softcore porn.
Yeah, yeah, right from the premium channels, yeah, type shit.
CineMax, yeah. And definitely a lot of other just like random movies too. I mean, obviously a movie like Rush Hour, you know, crossed over Jackie Chan and stuff like that, and you know, Shanghai Noon and stuff like that. You know, all of it, like the very commercialized, like, you know, halfway point for Americans to be like, oh, this is actually relatable because it's not just Chinese people, whatever, Japanese people, you know. That's how, you know, the corporate American mindset / cultural, you know, we know that. So yeah, it's just like a gradual spilling into things, and I feel like looking back on it, it's like I always remembered. It was like, you know, when you develop taste, it can be very intentional, but oftentimes it's like, oh, I just remembered that a lot more than other things.
Right.
And so, yeah, like, I think, yeah, you know, I mean, I was born in 93, so I'm about to turn 30 in October.
Yeah,
so,
I'm a year older. I was born in 92, so I feel you.
Nice. Yeah. So, yeah, in like the early 2000s, you know, I was like coming into being a preteen teenager. And definitely Kung Fu Hustle definitely was one of those that I stuck with. And then, you know, you get more autonomy, you just kind of keep looking for shit and stuff. And so, yeah, I just, you know, things open in a much wider expanse than that. But I could see like along the way, I was checking for these type of movies. And from then, yeah, I mean, from then it just kind of like has been a thing that often like kind of like it's not like a comfort film in terms of I don't pay attention to it, but I watch it when I want to watch something I know, a type of movie I know I'm gonna be into, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
nah, definitely.
put it on, I'm like, this is, I know whatever it's gonna be, it's gonna do it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's real. Before we move on to more specific stuff you got to as you got older, I realized that I think I've done over 100 and almost 115 of these, and I don't think I've talked about like really diving into like premium cable channels, because like I grew up with like DirecTV and TiVo,
Yeah.
and yeah, like that was like, you know, like having access to things like HBO and Stars and Cinemax, just like, just like summer days where just like random ass shits on TV. Like I remember seeing, talking about Jet Li stuff. I remember seeing The One for the first time and like thinking, because like I was younger and I had just seen The Matrix, so I thought that like it was some sort of spinoff of The Matrix because he was the one and Neo was the one. So I was like, oh, is this like? I think I might have asked somebody. I might have asked like a parent or something, just like, oh, like was this like about Neo? And they were like, no, it's completely different. It was either that or I saw it on a plane. I can't remember which one, but I remember seeing The One. And like the poster is like him like diving through some sort of like digital like cut in like a poster or some shit. And I was like really intrigued by that. And, you know, like between just like stuff like The One and what was the other Jet Li one I love? Fearless was really cool. Fearless is great. And just like,
and apparently he was supposed to be the lead in The Matrix.
yeah, I heard that. I heard,
and he didn't
I
want
don't,
his moves.
right, because they wanted to do to him what they want to do to all the actors now, where they wanted to like record his shit and like use it forever, right?
Yeah.
Like they've been trying to do this for 30 years, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's so depressing. But it's so depressing. But I you know, like The Matrix that's one of those movies that's going to be imprinted in my brain forever. And fucking Jet Li was someone whose movies I was always really intrigued by. And fucking yeah, you mentioned Shanghai Noon. I think I didn't see Shanghai Noon when it first came out, but I saw Shanghai Nights, the one where they went to Britain, where they went to the UK. I saw that in the theater with a bunch of friends. I haven't seen it since then, but like those movies were, like you said, they were a huge deal. Everyone over here loved them. The commercials were everywhere. Like it was just like the thing, especially for like a middle schooler or like a high schooler. Like those were like the movies to see, because everyone's like it was like adult enough, but not like you wouldn't have to sneak in to see it. You know, like it was like that. PG-13 movies are very are like a very sacred thing for anyone for who's, you know, anyone from like 13 to 18 years old. Like that's like the thing you can spend the least amount of effort to go to the movie to see, because you can just go see it. But it's at least that's what it was to me.
In there, you know, you feel independent, you know. That independence, you know, like it's crucial to feel like you're like, I'll have my own tastes, I'm a real person.
Yeah, no, you know, that shit is real.
I recently watched The Matrix like a year ago, and like everything, right? Like watching and observing something, when you have a heightened level of analysis and awareness, consciousness, if you will, beyond like the conceptual, like political ideas of it, just like really seeing how much that influenced everything after it is just insane.
Everything. Yeah.
So much. I mean, my stepdad tells me about being in Germany, because he's from Germany, and listening to Jimi Hendrix and not getting it, because he was like, oh, all these other guys do that. But then he actually really looked into it after listening to it again, he was like, oh, this influenced every single guitar player after him. You know, it's just like it's so futuristic that it seems, it's weird. It's like the paradox of something being so futuristic that it feels like so every day now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, like it always existed, you know, like it's like it goes beyond being a cliche, and it's just like baked into the fabric of life. Like going back to the, and I mean like Hendrix, obviously, you know, he's, in my opinion, probably the single most influential guitarist ever, like at least like top 3, top 5, whatever. But like with the Matrix in particular, like, you know, like these ideas of like, I mean, like first and foremost, watching the new one that came out a couple of years ago, and rethinking about like how the Wachowskis had always, like, you know, like the idea of like you know, like they both transitioned, of course, over the course of like the last 20ish years, and like ideas of trans personhood have always been ingrained in the Matrix. Like watching the first one again and being like, damn, like they've really always been thinking about this shit. And like it's like that made me smile, just like seeing how they like planted the seeds for that, and just like, and then, you know, just like the general idea of like red pill or blue pill. Like I just saw, like everyone else on planet Earth, I saw Barbie, and they do the red pill, blue pill thing with like a high heel and the Birkenstocks. And I was like, and I was thinking like, I mean, like, obviously I get what that means because I've seen the Matrix, but like, it's just one of those things where like you can have never seen the Matrix and you know what the red pill or blue pill argument is. Like, it's just one of those things that's just a part of life now, you know? And it's just like, I imagine like people who are like, you know, 15, maybe 20 years younger than us watching that, they get it, but they might not know where it comes from. It's just like, I'm so fascinated by stuff that just like, you know, just like permeates the, like, just like what's the word I'm looking for? Like transcends the thing it came from. And it's just like its own idea now. But like, you know, like if you know, there's layers to it. I don't know. I'm babbling, but like, that's cool to me. I like that.
I totally agree. I mean, impact, you know, is impact and like resonance is so interesting. I think to observe today, because things are, I mean, it's always been like this, but things are, you can really see like the hand behind things being pushed, or just like the promotion is so ubiquitous and consistent that I think it's really interesting to like, I don't know, think about what's going to be impactful now in the future. But also just how like there was a lot more, I think, like central cultural touchstones. At a certain point, I feel like that's like broken apart a little bit, and to observe things like that. I mean, it's a whole other discussion, but I think that's the interesting thing about AI is like pre-AI and post-AI, it's often like it's like a feedback loop of like accepted ideas and how things feel more permanent than, like, you know, if an AI can put out a model of Drake, that makes Drake permanent in like you know, the galactic intelligence scope. You know, it's like beyond the Milky Way. If, you know, we are gone and we just have machines left, you know, there's going to be this information and all of the things, you know, this like, you know, model of spitting out information. And like there's kind of like, I guess it's like the whole thing with like curation, right? Like curation, and how curation can sometimes, in particular like streaming services, act like censorship if things are taken down. You know, it's like, yeah, like what is made permanent, what is made not so permanent, or like more harder to conceive of, like moving forward. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think about impact with something like the Matrix, and it's like when you can't even remember the referent or the reference, that's crazy.
Yeah.
so there.
Right. Like it's just like becomes its own idea. And like and like now that we're on the subject of AI, I'm actually glad you brought that up because 2 days ago, I think it was on Monday, I saw some article that was talking about the fact that Universal Music Group and Google are working on ways to like officially monetize deepfakes of their artists signed to the label.
Mm,
And like in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, so like they weren't with it because they couldn't make money off it. And like as soon as these people figure out ways to make money off it, they're like, okay, we could do this. And it's like but like it speaks to your point about permanence and just like what permanence means now, because like you go from something like back in like the 90s and the early 2000s, like just or really like any time before now, basically like printing something on physical media was like all people had for permanence. It's like, oh, like like when we're all gone, like the vinyl and the CDs and the tapes will still be here, right? And
yeah.
now it's like, oh, when we're all gone, like the digital files will still be here, and like this a semblance of a thing that was a person's will still be here when we're not. It's just interesting to see how that, I mean like obviously there's a whole, like you said, a whole other conversation to be had about ethics and creativity. And I have a lot of feelings about AI that we don't got to get into right now, but
Yeah, we can have another. I'll start a podcast, but
right. Type shit.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, no, just like, but like you said, that's another really interesting example to me of like how just like, yeah, just like imagine someone's voice becoming like the red pill or blue pill idea, where it's like you hear it and it's like it's kind of like man, we're getting real esoteric right now. Like the fucking voices for like TikTok videos, like the AI like the bass voices, like the really high pitched Siri type voice and the one that sounds like a goblin. Like we all know the voices when we hear them because
yeah,
everybody uses them over the videos, and it's just like that's like a disembodied, like that voice is disembodied from something, from someone, but like we all know it because it's everywhere. Like that voice has become an idea. Man, like I'm like the neurons are firing like crazy
let's
right
go, let's go.
now. Yeah, we live in a weird world, bro. That's all I got. Like this is a very strange world we live in.
It is indeed. And trying to like express something, like whether that's in like expository form or artistic form, I'm finding myself like figuring out how to boil certain things down, but then realizing like maybe it's not time. Like I think like my processing hasn't caught up with all the shit going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so many bars I want to write, or paragraphs I'm thinking about, and I'm just like, I don't even contend it with half of this shit.
Right.
You know?
We can't we can't process information that fast. Like we, like it's crazy because like, like I feel like, like the further along we go as humans, like, like we pick things up because we pick things up faster than people older than us because we like grew up with technology to a certain extent. And just like, we're kind of required to process information a little bit faster than people before us. But like, like there's people younger than us who could probably process information faster than we can. It's all a perspective thing, but
Yeah.
like it's just strange times. That's all I got. It's just strange, interesting,
Best time to
fun.
be a realist, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah.
Got like, yeah, I mean, you have, Sharif, you have Terrence Nance. Who else is a surrealist? I mean, Donald Glover.
Yeah,
You know?
definitely. Just like finding ways to just like find the just like finding anything in any of this. Like, I don't want to diminish the work that people like Sharif and Terrence Nance do, but just like anybody who can make any sense of anything going on is a surrealist in their own way right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
once again, like that's not I don't want to generalize or like diminish anyone's art, because there's definitely a hierarchy when it comes to that. Let's put it that way. But like people like you and Sharif, like you and Sharif in particular, like just very Like y'all really just like bring it out in different ways. And we're gonna get to that with you in particular. But before we do,
yeah,
so like
correct.
nah. So like as you get older
Mm-hmm.
and you just like have more experiences and start developing your own taste, like you were saying before, can you remember one of the first movies you saw that really like stopped you and like connected with you in a way that was more than just like a piece of entertainment for 90 minutes? Not even so much in an artful way, but just like if it like connected with you emotionally, spiritually, just like something that really spoke to you more as that as just something that spoke to you and connected with you in a profound way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. This is one of those questions. I won't have the silence be too long.
No, that's cool.
I'm running through things. Well, look over here at my collection. Probably, you know, I mean, my first instinct is to be like Lord of the Rings, but I don't think so. In that same way, I think that was connected to a different sense of like fantasy and imagination that shared something with video games and literature. So probably
That's a special relationship though, you know.
yeah. I mean honestly, probably like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I don't
Oh
know.
wow.
Like I'm trying to think of something serious, you know, like because that's a question where you're like, oh, it's gonna be some drama or whatever, or like you know something that has like that. But I think it kind of distilled a lot of experimental ideas and like techniques, and was just kind of like there was a level of physical comedy and I don't know, just like you know Terry Gilliam, obviously, like I think you know he's been called out for some shit, but
Yeah.
in the past, but his aesthetics, animations that were in there, just like things cutting in and out, being kind of anything goes type absurdism, uh, silliness, um, and yeah, I don't know. I think like there's a lot of imprinted like quotes from that movie. Um,
Definitely.
so yeah, it's a long-winded way of like thinking about it and trying to be like, okay, that one's actually not off limits. Monty Python, the Holy Grail. Yeah, I think it revealed a level of like uh, playfulness, um, playfulness to me, and just I don't know. Um, it just hit on many different levels. I don't know that sounds like very you know like general, but I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, no, it's one of those, you know, like that was there was like I remember the first time I saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and just like I didn't really know anything about Monty Python beforehand. I just had a friend at the time who was like really into it, and like and like our group of friends was like and like they showed it to us one day, and I watched it and I was like, oh, you know, like I had seen because like it's very meta, of course, you know, like all Monty Python, everything is super duper meta, but that might have been one of the earliest examples of something that was like maybe not the earliest example, because like I'm thinking about all the meta shit that I'd seen as a kid and like kind of recognizing it as that now. Like I've seen the scary movies before, and like you know, like that's kind of like that, those are extremely meta obviously, but like that was one of the first times that I might have like understood and recognized what something being meta meant, you know,
Mm,
like on that level, and like really just like not even so much like breaking the fourth wall, but just like there is no fourth wall, you know, like you know, like it was just like the whole thing was like a movie within a movie the whole time, especially at the end when they're about to do the fight and the directors come in. Like I had never seen nothing like that specifically before, you know, like even from something like a scary movie or like an airplane, Like it went a step or two beyond just being a parody, and just like completely like it's just one of those things that like just directly questions everything it's about. And like, looking back on it now, it was one of my first examples of like really reckoning with the idea of what it means to be meta in a thing, on
Yeah.
top of the fact that it was like the fucking like the killer bunny rabbit and the coconuts with the horses and all the different quotes. And like I ran with the nerds who would not stop yelling that they were the knights who say me, like those terrible, annoying people. And we were a lot of us were that. A lot of us were that.
Yeah. No, I think you like kind of helped me make my winding answer very succinct, with your point that I think it showed that like something more artsy and experimental could also just directly like make you laugh and be fun. Because I feel like there's a level of experimentality where the fun, the stupidity gets lost, like a balance of stupidity and things being elevated, and things being immediately hitting you and you having to think about it. That's something that I really strive for in everything that I do and I think about, is like how can I reach an arm out and still give someone, like, make someone reach as well. I'm not gonna give you everything.
Agreed.
And there's been a lot of things like that. I think probably around that same time, if not before, like I've discovered TV on the radio, and that was like another, like a similar, totally different art form thing. Same idea though, like being weird as hell, but having this level of like sweet, the sweet spot is still there in all this tangled, really cool shit going on. Yeah. So
like it's all about balance. Like you don't want things to be too heady, and or some, I guess some people want things to be too heady or too silly, whatever. But like I'm also a huge fan of like that balance. It's the whole spoonful of sugar. It's the whole spoonful of sugar concept. Like and you're like that willingness. You put it even better. Like meeting people halfway. Like meeting people halfway is a like that's an important. I feel like that's an important thing for any, like that should be aspirational for anybody making art. Like you want to, like you want your perspective to be heard and understood, but you don't want your music to feel like you're beating people over the head, or like not even so much that you're beating people over the head, but like that you're talking. You don't want it to feel like you're talking down to people. Like, or at least you shouldn't want it to feel like you're talking down to people. Like it's like that sort of understanding and empathy for, like it's not like you have to make music for everybody, but like there's a certain way to go about it where like you're coming at it, like even if you don't understand, you're like coming at it from a place of at least like compassion and attempting to understand and like make it kind of like, it's a difficult thing to put into words, but just like meeting people halfway is a really important thing that everyone should at least try to do. Like it's like there's just like coming at it with some sort of empathy and understanding is important. And like you can't always put that on the listener. Like you gotta give them the trail of breadcrumbs to follow. Like if that's not there, then like you can't just throw somebody into the woods, in the middle of the woods, and expect them to be able to find their way out most of the time. Like you got to give them something.
I mean, yeah, that's been always a central like tenet, whatever, same shit. I think assuming more of people, not too much, but assuming more. I know, like particularly in our world today, that's really difficult. Assuming like, that people have more capacity than they believe. It's the saw. I always like I've said this so many times, and I even put it in the language arts unit book, like the Saul Williams quote: "Your current frequencies for understanding outweigh those which have been given for you to understand." Just, I like to think that my goal overall is obviously to be as authentic as possible with everything I do. And not authentic, just like real with myself, authenticity, whatever the fuck that means. But to not, in not editing myself, not obfuscating myself, presenting a window for someone to understand, believe that they can understand more than they think, or like give someone an invitation to something that they might not be, they might not think that they're into. Like, I think the invitation is really important. The assumption, leveled here and there, but the assumption that people can maybe take on more than they think they can.
Right.
I think that is like a level of, amid my pessimism, a level of hope that I have, a level of positivity that I carry. And when shit does that for me, I'm very excited. I'm like, oh shit, I met this. Like, I worked my way up to this, and like I kind of get it,
Right.
I didn't think I could, but I got it.
Right. And that's and once again, like that's aspirational as well, like just like that's the whole idea of like meeting somebody halfway is, y'all both got to work for it. It's not like it's not like it's all on the artist or all on the listener, the observer, or the whoever. Like that's like there's definitely been stuff that I've had to work with, and like like the whole idea of like this is an acquired taste, and you'll get it at some point, it'll come back and get you. And like sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I didn't have, like I might not have had the capacity or like the context to get that before, but now I do. Like whether I'm older or I read something new or heard something new, it's just like that. Like I like to grow. I like to grow with my shit. And if like it's just about it's about making it like challenging and stimulating without it just being like just nobody wants to be talked down to. Like nobody wants to be talked down to. Like,
Yeah.
and and like if you're in a position where you feel like you deserve or need to talk down to people, like you probably need to take a step back and reassess. Basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
More often than not.
Definitely.
But before we move on to your music specifically, you had mentioned TV on the radio. But what other stuff when did you when did music become like capital M music for you? Like when was like and it doesn't even have to be with rap specifically, but like what
right.
Like when did music become like, yeah, like I said, capital M music for you?
Fortunately, I think we, many people can relate to this. Music was always like in the environment. Fortunately, I had parents who were into really alternative stuff for like from the jump. So, my dad, I remember my dad, he was like, a white Jewish dude, put me on to Kanye West when back in like 2004. While at the same time, my mom was still listening to like Depeche Mode, you know what I mean? And just there's always been a very interesting center of gravity, I feel like, for me with music that's never I've been able to appreciate. And like I had to discover like pop music because the music in my house was so out there, in a certain extent. But I think, like we, growing up in the 2000s, like, I think I started really to get into music in general, just being a teenager. But then rap music in general, just as like a kind of culturally significant, like trying to make sense of just, embodying a type of blackness that felt like it really reflected me and like where I was coming from. And like there's obviously really funny like overcompensations and putting on, get-ups and stuff like that. And so, there was like a long window of that in my teenage years, and I guess music became really a thing when like I kind of really had a few choices in my life that caused me to part ways with things like athletics. I had to quit athletics and piss people off because there was a long, like winded, history of hyper competitive sports. Um, and so when I did that, I was like, just creeping through all this music in my life, playing instruments because my parents, offered me lessons because they didn't have them. I didn't really resonate with anything. I didn't want to play anything. And then for some reason, when I had this act of self-determination to like quit being a jock and hiding certain parts of myself or whatever, like at 18, at 18, it was really late. Like I didn't even start making music until I was really like 18, 19 in college. And that in many ways like reflected me trying to start over because I went from LA to Wesleyan in Connecticut.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And you know, being being a young adult in your early 20s and stuff like that, like late teens, having like these points of identification through art and culture and media and music. As I was practicing it, I was expanding my taste. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting. It's just like this, it felt like it was this slow creep, and I felt very fortunate to have such a weird point where I started with music. And not weird, but just alternative point. So I grabbed into something that was maybe more normal or more like easy to digest from that. And as I literally came of age, I was like, I just made a decision. Yeah, let's see what I can do with this music because I have a lot of things I've been writing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of taste that I feel like I could apply artistically because I've been painting, writing, doing that for forever, but I hadn't really actually like wanted to say my piece musically. Yeah, I just felt like really the right time. Like the right time. I was like, I am a fully formed human being. What's this music about?
Right.
I don't know if that a clear answer or is too circuitous.
No, I get what you're saying, and I think it's I think it's really interesting that music came like yeah like considering all the things you do, it's interesting that music came last in a sense for you. Like
Yeah.
like when did you when did you first start writing, and like when did painting come like talk to me a little bit about like the other forms of art and whether or not like do like I assume that all of those may have also influenced the way you make music as well, so like just like talk to me about like that confluence of shit.
Um, yeah, so I think, I've been teaching in the classroom for the last 4 years. So, when I say this, it's not just pulling it out my ass, everyone draws and paints when they're a kid.
Yep.
I just didn't stop. Um, and fortunately, my mom like was working, had a laundromat paying for my art lessons when I was 11 and 12 years old because she never had that. And like she saw the ability, and then I met it,
Yeah.
with receiving that because I didn't receive the music lessons like that, like the art for some reason was like really, um, it just made it just I grasped onto it, and actually in middle school I was selected by the county to be part of this youth arts conservatory at the California Cal State LA. And so I did that, and literally at the time that happened, like I was in it for a year, and then like I basically stopped doing art to play basketball for like 5-6 years. Which is like, yeah, it's really a trip to think about. And then I also started to do art again when I was like 17, 18. But writing is something. I mean, my dad. So both my parents, my my biological birth parents are actors. Not like rolling in the dough or anything, or had big parts, but working actors.
Same.
Oh,
my dad
nice.
does that too. Yeah. My dad does that too.
Oh yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, no, it's a different. It's a way to grow up with an actor parent for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like my mom's biggest part was on a different world. She was a character in the main cast for like the whole first season.
Oh, that's crazy! Wow.
I'll share with you her one of her scenes. It's really funny. She's actually on screen a lot as one of the main characters. But then she got pregnant with my brother, and they like didn't call her back, which sucks,
Yeah.
But the writing, so my parents, yeah, they like, as I said, it's just like a really interesting series of conditions, I think, that were around me, and not conditions, but like circumstances. Like they just really had, I think, a faculty for language. Like my parents pull out the most random words in conversations, and I think that's always been around me. Um, like my mom will like, be bemoaning things happening with my grandmother and will mention like that she had the temerity to do this and stuff. Like that's just regular, you know. uh and so my dad also transitioned from more acting to writing. He wrote a few screenplays that got done. And so it was just always there. And I think my brother, who doesn't write anymore, was like a really, like, I don't know if famous is the right word, but like really renowned youth poet. And he just stopped writing poetry. But I remember going to his poetry readings and seeing all these like white-haired literary heads geek out at him, just like yell like punk rock type poetry to people in rooms at like 12 years old, and I was 7, and I was like, I want to do that. And so just as a lot of like conditions for me to feel comfortable doing these things. And obviously the writing got me through a lot when I was feeling kind of like I was compromising myself in the athletic environments I was in. And that shit just kind of collected and collected and collected. And so by the time it started to turn into raps and lyrics, and by the time I was ready, to do music, there was a reservoir, and that's definitely very connected. The writing is very connected there, and the art has increasingly been so. But there's a lot of like an ecosystem there that's I've like kind of put into place, where one thing leads to another, bounces off another.
Yeah.
And I just feel grateful that there were circumstances that allowed me to do this, and I still do it, because a lot of people I know do really dope shit, did really dope shit, and they stopped.
Yeah, me too. It's like so easy to either get burnt out or life shit happens and you gotta go take care of it. Like I got a ton of friends too who have done really beautiful creative shit, and they just had to stop for whatever reason. And like it's I'm also extremely grateful to just kind of like to have like for life have kind of worked itself out for me to be sitting here talking to you right now. Like that's like
Yeah.
it's it's like it could just be really difficult to rein all that in, just depending on what life throws at you. But it all yeah, like what did Jeff Goldblum say in Jurassic Park? It always finds a way. Like if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, I guess. And
Right.
like for you, like as you like as you really started to fully embrace the music at in that particular way, like when did you know that music in particular was going to become more than just a hobby for you, and like you were going to be like that you were in, like for real?
Yeah. I think when I felt it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm someone who has like tremendous sense of self as much as I have self-esteem issues sometimes. I remember I had this verse memorized, and some of my friends who I'd played music with as a younger kid when I was really just not really into it, they had an event they were throwing called Booty Jam.
Hey.
And at one point they opened up and they were just jamming on stuff like, I think, or maybe they were just playing instrumentals. The DJ was playing instrumentals because they're all instrumentalists, but the DJ was probably just cutting up some, old school boom bap or something. And this one dude started to rap, and I just went up there, scared as shit, spit this verse, kind of blacked out a little bit, and I felt this thing come out of me, and then some friends who I like grown up with since I was 8 or 7 years old, I was like maybe 18 at the time, they were like, yo, that was really cool. I didn't know you did that. Oh shit, whatever, And they call it catching the bug or whatever. I probably caught the bug there. And I realized it wasn't in my head. Like I had a feeling that I could do it, and I did it, and I was going to continue doing it. It's in the simplest, most direct way possible. And it quickly turned into something like very one of one, in the sense of I didn't like or didn't feel like I wanted to use other people's approaches lyrically or instrumentally. And so as I was learning how to rap better, I was also teaching myself production. And part of teaching myself production too was like being in an environment in college where like I didn't really get it. I was kind of shy, or had a lot of doubts about, just like how to operate in certain spaces. And so I spent like the first year and a half of college in my room teaching myself how to do things. And so I think there were a series of confirmations along the way. And rewinding back to that first time I spat on stage, spit a verse on stage. I was also in like an open mic scene in LA, which was very fertile at that time, like 2012. And so I would do these kind of things in between poetry, in between rap, maybe have a beat, play a beat that I was working on. And I kind of was like, it was the first moment where I felt something back, where like people were gassing me up as this like prodigal, prodigal son, of the Los Angeles spoken word hip hop rap scene. And so I liked that feedback. I liked feeling that. I liked the immediacy of it, because writing and visual art can be very interior and very just like in and of themselves. And I recognized that I was looking for something outside of myself, and music inherently, like I'll make beats that no one ever hears. It's fine. But music, I think, inherently provided this guarantee, or pretext maybe is the right word, of it being outside of me in some form or fashion. And it being a communal thing that has to reach outwards, versus other things I did don't necessarily have to ever be seen by anyone. And I think that intrigued me. I wanted to be opened up a little bit in that way.
Wow. Yeah. That's like figuring that out so early on, and just like like going back to the whole idea of like that balance, and just like acknowledging that you can make stuff for yourself and have that just be for you, and whether that's like an emotional outlet or whatever, like cool. And then everything else is stuff that everyone else hears. Like I'm really intrigued by that. And before I forget, just like you mentioning just like how fertile the creative scene was in 2012 out there. Just like I think about that all the time, in particularly because I loved like one of my favorite music eras was like just like all the shit happening in the beat scene in the early 2010s in LA, and just like everything between like, you know, like I'm like the Project Blowed cats and everything like Fly Low and fucking Mind Design and like Knowledge at the time, and like every like that's one of my favorite. Like I fell in love with so much of that music around that time, you know, like everything happening in like Low End Theory with like Daddy Kev shit, like just like that was such a, you know, like I see that, and I obviously wasn't over on the West Coast at that time, but you know, I see all that happening. I'm damn, like I wish I could have been there for some of that. Like that's one of those that I wish I could have experienced firsthand, and I can only imagine what the poetry scene was like. Like if y'all were going that crazy on everything else, like that's different, you know. I've always been intrigued by that.
No, it's really funny with that because I didn't go to Low End Theory until like I went away to school because I wasn't 21 and I didn't really go out. I didn't have a fake ID or anything like that. So I went to Low End Theory like because I came back every break from school, and I was like, oh yeah, this has been in my backyard this whole time. I've been so interior. So it's very interesting how like things coalesced into me being involved. Like I played Low End Theory back in 2016 before it shuttered, and that was a really good experience. Like the fact that I only started going to Low End Theory, you know, in like 2013, and then by 2016 I actually could participate in it was really cool.
That's beautiful.
But also the thing about, I'm glad you brought up the Blowed, because at one of the open mics that I went to, I did this verse and someone was like, oh, you know, you remind me of Project Blowed. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. And I like just didn't really, because as I said, you know, I was so in here. I didn't realize I was living in Lamert Park. I was at Chaos Network with Ben Caldwell, who was hosting Project Blowed from the 90s until it's, you know, shuttering in the mid 2000s. I'd known him when I was like, I've known him since I was like 15 or 14 before I did any music. So it was really interesting that I was there the whole time just existing. And when I decided to tap in and become aware, or when I became aware, everything just was, I don't know, everything felt like it was in place already.
And it was just time to go. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And obviously like there are like connections I wish I had cultivated and things I wish I had cultivated sooner. But yeah, it just felt like, you know, we all know the confirmation bias, you know, thing where like you only really pay attention to stuff that goes the way you think it is when it goes away. But it does feel like a confirmation, like some kind of destiny shit where I was just like, this was in my backyard. And I just looked up. I stopped looking at the ground, honestly.
Right.
Oh. So
no, it's like your whole environment was telling like this is the direction you need to go, and you were finally ready to take those steps. And you know, like, and you're like, I feel like that could be directly translated to your earliest project that I was able to find. And I love this title, you know, like aggressively ethnically ambiguous. Like I was listening to that earlier and just like taking that in.
Bro, I was listening to so much Migos back then.
I could tell. That's the crazy part, you know. Like that's like that made me so happy to kind of like just because like you know how a lot of like I'm sure you know how a lot of this goes. Like people hear the type of music you make and they assume that like all you listen to is like rap Ferreira. But like I hear this and I'm like, oh, I hear this and I'm like, oh, you were probably listening to like Versace like 8 hours a day. Like I could just tell like there's like that YRN type of energy to this. And like I just, you know, like just like I feel like I've talked about this a few times on the podcast with a few different people, but just the idea that like everyone looks at indie rappers, quote unquote, and they're just like, oh yeah, like all they listen to is like whatever. And then like people get surprised when they're like, oh yeah, I listen to nothing but Young Thug, or like I listen to nothing but Migos, or like I listen to nothing but like Gucci. You know, like I can't tell you how many people in our community like just like listen to nothing but like people just like talk to me about we talk about Super Slimy all the time, you know,
Yeah.
and like it's I just always like to remind people that like rap's a circle, you know, like it's like not as much of a spectrum as we like to think it is. My brain just opened up. I just talked to Mick Jenkins for the Fader yesterday, and he was
Oh,
talking about how like, yeah, no, that it just kind of happened, and like he and I got into this whole conversation about like the spectrums of hip hop and how like, you know, he was talking about like, oh, like I make different music from Playboy Cardi, and like why are we being, you know, like we would be considered for the same Grammy award for Rap Album of the Year, and in my head I'm like, y'all both do make rap music. It's different kinds of rap music, but like he acknowledged that it's a spectrum, but to me it's really more like a circle. Like
mhm.
everything kind of feeds back into each other in one way or another. I'm not of the type to be like separating things. Like everything needs to be in boxes, I guess, just because that's the way humans work. But yeah,
And when you
it was
to categorize a review, yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's a yeah. It's a lot. But either way, I'm sorry I got off track. Fucking yeah. Like I really loved diving into aggressively ethnically ambiguous, and you know, just like I can see all these different aspects of stuff that you may or may not have been listening to just like develop. So you know, like what was your intent going into that project? And like it's been about 6-ish years since it came out, so like how does it feel looking back on that? And
Mhm.
then I have a very specific question about one of the last songs that I'll ask you when you answer those two questions.
Right. Okay. I honestly, I kind of want to go back to that kind of music for a project. I really want to go harder and kind of just make some shit for like to slap a little bit. Um, because I think at that time I was kind of, I'm not gonna give myself too much credit, but I kind of was kind of predicting. I wrote a lot of those songs in like 2013, 2014, 2015. I sculpted them, and my friend Mantra produced. I produced like 3 tracks on it, and he produced the other 6, or is it 9, or is it 8? I can't
I
remember.
think I think it's 9. I'm gonna go double check now, but I'm pretty
I
sure it was
produced actually I produced 3.5, and then he produced the other 5.5. If it's 9,
9. Got it.
um,
It's
and
9. Yeah.
yeah, he was like collaborating with a lot of like the real prime SoundCloud era cats, like P2 the Gold Mask, and he even had a beat with like Bones or something. And
Wow.
that was my friend in college who like saw me working on this overall just person through music, and I matched myself to that while finding like yeah, I feel like it's a really an encapsulation of where I was, to answer the question simply. But I think it's also where I want to go back to a little bit, in the sense of like using like the pop idioms, pop rap idioms, um, the styles, um, the songwriting, and like the just the fun a little bit of it. Um, so the second part of the question was,
I think you already answered it. Just like looking back on it 6-ish years later, and just like what how you feel about it and where you were.
yeah, it's came up in many ways. My friends were in their car the other day, and he had the CD in his car because I came up with like really crazy fold outs with all those. The photo on the front like is like a part of a whole tableau of shit. Um, and so I was like, oh man, because he texted me with the cover of it with a picture. He was like, oh, I'm listening to this, and I did the I'm so embarrassed thing. Um, but he was like, "Nah, this was actually really tight. It's tight to hear you rap like this." Um, and yeah, I've been feeling like I've gone so many different ways, and that music still is relevant. So yeah, I'm just thinking, is it again a circle moment? Circle moment.
Yeah, man.
Also, yeah, Daddy Kev mastered that, and Kenny Siegel mixed it.
Hey, wow. That's wild. I didn't
And
know any of that.
Kenny Siegel definitely was like not trying to fuck with me, but I was like, please, please, because I listened to all the bus that he worked on, and I was
Right.
like, you know how to mix weird people's vocals, and I was just trying to get the end. And that was funny. I was definitely like the starry-eyed little kid. I wasn't little. I was like 21, but I was like, please, please work with me.
Oh, I get that. I get
Yeah,
that.
funny.
But that's great though. Like it's like there's such like a boundless like that's like a really boundless project to me. There's like so much there's so much like exuberance and just like energy in your voice and just like your ideas. And in particular, what spirits were hiding in the Taco Bell at the end of Bouquet of Tourniquets? Because that's the one detail that like got like it like I mean like there's obviously so many details on the album, but that's one because it happens like right at the very end of the album. And you just said like the spirits that are like something along the lines of like there's spirits in the Taco Bell, and I just like what spirits were in the Taco Bell? I need to know.
I live bean and cheese.
Fire. The spirits of the spirits of Diablo Sauce Past. I love that. That's
real. I can't. I couldn't tell you. Maybe I was like drunk at Taco Bell one college night, and just like really feeling it. Might have been, like my latent Southern California energy, Taco Bell culture out here.
right.
Yeah, nothing like too conceptual and philosophical. That one was definitely a track where I was interested in juxtaposing like really strange and colliding really strange or disparate images and making sure in that collision, like the vibe of the track was still intact. And there was a lot of that, like the whole thing where I rap like Versace, the Jesus of Los Feliz track. I was like, I want to rap like Migos while not being disrespectful to it, but not rap about what they rap about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a matter. It was like what are the limits of form and content? What are the limits? Like, I think if something sounds a certain way, good enough, you can make it work. And that was like the general sensibility behind everything. But that I won't say it here because I don't want to get a cease and desist. That Shut Bouquet of Tourniquets record has a video game sample. That's very classic. So I'll send it to you, and you'll like an Xbox game, Yeah,
Yeah, please. I'm looking for, as someone who spent plenty of time on the Xbox. I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna be tight. Yeah, like it was really fun going back to like hear that project a couple times and just like like there was stuff in between that, but like you've already mentioned it a few times. Language Arts Unit. I want to focus on that a little bit because like not only is like that album that was the first project of yours I ever heard. Like that's when like the Eternal Jeff Weiss put me onto your shit because of course you release music on his label, and like Language Arts Unit was the first project of yours I heard, and really like that's around the time I tapped in. And like not only is that album really like interesting and like super duper fun to just like dig through, you mentioned it before, you put a book out with it. So just like talk to me about putting Language Arts Unit together and like how the book plays into that and how those two things connect to each other, because I always love an album with like it doesn't even have to be a book, just like anything, like if there's like a film if there's like a film companion piece or like a book, I just love pieces of art that are in conversation with each other. So like talk to me about that process.
Yeah, of course. That was something that made sense on a few different levels. or rather had a rationale on a few different levels. One was kind of, I wouldn't say predicting it, already being in it. The incredible existential turnover of information and media, and feeling like digital releases, felt really hollow and like impalpable, or ungraspable in a real like way to contend with the depth of something.
Yeah.
Um, I knew I wanted to do something. I had the play on words in my head. I had this idea about this deconstructionist hip hop manifesto for a while, and I think honestly it was like me coming to terms with finding shelter in big ideas in academia, while also wanting to engage and get not just engaging in this art form that's like very direct, sometimes like the opposite of academic in its vulgarity, in its and vulgarity not just in terms of profanity, but just like coarseness, right? Like just how raw it is.
Yeah.
And I definitely like took the seeds of that idea, and it all dovetailed into the language arts unit project. And I kind of had a lot of things to say, just trying to make sense. Like, why did I want to start rapping? Like, why? Like, why am I rapping? What's the point of rapping? What's the point of rap? Um, and also, again, the limits of form and content. I mean, in the book, it's basically like, this is a essayists and poets rap album, and this is a rapper's essay slash poetry.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, I like that's definitely represents some of the scholarship could have been better, or not better. I could have just had more time and resources to like dig into stuff and read. But I'm proud of it in the sense that it really took the salt out of a lot of academic shit that I was putting all this weight into, while respecting it, while um while really being playful. Again, that coming back to being playful with shit. Like, so much I felt like I was participating in music because I wanted my ideas to circulate in a more public fashion than my other art forms. And a large part of my frustrations with rap and with academia, which are completely different animals, is that
Yeah.
the limitations of presentation, intent, selling oneself short, or limiting, kind of drawing boundaries. And so I felt like with academia, I can break it down in two parts. With academia, like, these ideas are so essential, and the jargon sometimes is essential to communicate a complexity. But if the ideas are so essential, there has to be a way to communicate them in a way that is interesting. It doesn't have to be, I don't think everything has to be entertainment, but it's like the impact of the idea is lost because it's unreadable. Things are
Right.
And so I wanted to contend with serious ideas in a humorous way, in a playful way that also was slightly rigorous.
See, oh man, yeah, like niggas are not trying to read peer-reviewed journals, straight up, like, and but yeah, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add that. I didn't mean to cut you.
No, it's all good. And with the rap stuff, I think aggressively ethnically ambiguous was probably a more refined distillation of it. Actually, the project that after language arts unit, Grant Money Raps, was even a better distillation of it. Just questioning how something sounds being a determinant of what it could talk about. And I think that being so applicable to a lot of questions about identity, right? And like, if someone acts, if someone is a certain thing or identifies as something, what prescriptions are on them to have to repeat a script or repeat certain delineated actions? And I was just really like, I was like, I'm not one of those people who's really interested in respectability politics or like blaming people for material conditions they're rapping about.
Same.
But I like this music, and I'm not gonna rap about that shit because, first of all, I might be adjacent to some stuff going on, but that's not my experience. I don't even like really play in certain like gangster fantasies. Like it's fun to, like experience it, but I'm also questioning like, why is it fun to experience the gangster shoot, kill, drug deal shit? And finding a way to be authentic and authentic as just being like real with myself, not authentic in a weird like academic way. How can I make shit that's hard? I like hard music. I like cool music. How can I be cool and have this level of hardness and have it not be posturing, mix in the weirdest parts of myself and really just ask the question, you know, why is anything expected of us? Or rather, why are things expected of us? And how can we push back on that?
Damn. Like getting back to that whole idea of like, like that's a very meta idea, like that's a very like self-aware, like step out of your body and look at the shit type of question and a thing to explore. And I'm actually really happy you brought that up the way you did in relation to your book and your projects, because I've been reading Prodigy's autobiography over the course of the last couple of weeks, and I've been thinking about a lot of similar. I've had a lot of similar questions, just like reading over like his life story, and just like and like knowing the nature of how that book came to be. Like him, like them, the journalist that he wrote the book with, and I'm mad that I can't remember her name. So I'm gonna look it up because I don't wanna do her like that. Her name is Laura Checkaway. So like they had originally, they were gonna do it. They were gonna do it before he wound up going to prison, but he was kind of hard to find. And then he went to prison, and he was like, okay, you know what? I got time. Let's hop on the phone, tell you my life story, jot it all down. Like it's an autobiography, but she helped him put it together, because more often than not, somebody's helping people put their autobiographies together, unless they're like, yeah. But like, I think that book also kind of sits. I mean, it doesn't do exactly what Language Arts Unit did, but just like it definitely does. It definitely gets at the intersection of like this type of music that you and I both love, but it's also being presented in a somewhat kind of sort of academic way, or at least it was like put together in a sort of like, maybe not academic, but just like very quote unquote professional type of way, like through a book. And I think those questions are always worth asking and worth interrogating, and just like reading reading about Prodigy and Havoc getting into fights at Mobb Deep shows and like beating people up and stabbing them at train stations, like that's all very, like it's like all inherently voyeuristic. Like we're all just kind of like watching it and like, yeah, look at the dudes do their, like it's like that's exciting, like we can admit that that's exciting to hear about. Like it's exciting, it's thrilling, entertaining, whatever you want to call it. But once again, like you said, like why? Like why are we fascinated by this? Like especially if you don't come from that, because like there are people who are like really into that stuff who have no relationship to it, like no family that they've like, like people who've never been to the projects in their life are just like locked in, and it's just like, like it's I guess I say all of that to say that like, I'm also very attuned to that, and not to and then on top of that, I'm also working on my own book that's kind of sort of similar to that
Shit.
as well. Yeah, it's it should be coming out sometime in the next like month or so. I hope. It's my man Austin Williams. Shout out to Austin. I love you for being patient with me. He asked me to come on and write a kind of sort of like textbook for his his music journalism class. And we decided. Well, he came to me with a bulk of the idea, but we kind of worked it down, just like the idea of exploring what it means to be a culture writer, whether that be a music journalist or a film journalist, and just like why so many people in our profession like hop between disciplines, because I'm a music and film person. There are a lot of people who exist in one, but I feel like every single writer has written about, like nobody's written just about music or just about film or just about politics. Like once again, that's like part of that's out of necessity, but another part of that is like there's intersections here that need to be explored. And it's just kind of like literalizing the concept of Real Notes, which is like exploring the relationship between rap and film and blowing that up to like the relationship between writing about one thing versus writing about another, and like explaining what it means to be a digital journalist, because there isn't a lot of literature about working in the field of digital journalism, especially now that things are starting to fall apart and they're a little more volatile than they were even 5 years ago. Like there's like a lot to chew on there. And like not to, like I never want to put myself in a position where, once again, like we said before, like I'm talking down to people, but like there's a lot of information and context that I feel like is lost in these conversations. And like having this be a textbook, I also like I didn't want it to read like an encyclopedia or like a peer-reviewed journal. Like I wanted this to be like fun and interesting and funny, and just like on top of being informative without it just like being like, once again, like being entertainment. So it's like you're really preaching to the choir right now. Like I know exactly what you're talking about, and seeing that come through in your music and your writing has always been one of the most fascinating aspects of you as a musician and as a person to me. So it's been dope to see that from afar. I don't have any follow-up other than to say like that's just tight, and I get where you're coming from. I hear and receive that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad someone, like yourself is tapped in, because I appreciate your writing and your perspective and just your, your commitment to context, because that's a lot of what the digital landscape eviscerates.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like there is a need to always be on, and that's taxing. That's taxing to always be on and alert. And I'm sure what you talk about partially is like the need to comment on everything all the time. And it's like, oh, where's the space there?
Right.
Think about the comment and all that. Just gave me an idea for a bar. That's crazy.
That's fire.
Yeah.
Damn. Like, yeah, no, yeah. Like sometimes we can be quiet, and that's okay. You don't gotta have an opinion on everything. Like sometimes it's just nice to, like, if you gotta do something, like amplify somebody else's opinion that like knows what they're talking about, or like bring people on who are experts in a thing that you might want to say. Let other people talk sometimes. Like we don't always got to be the main character. Like we can just observe or just go over there. Sometimes you could just go over there and it's cool.
Right.
Like you don't got to be the center of the universe all the time. But yeah, I want to, like, since we've been I obviously don't want to I don't want to not talk about To Operate This System, which is really, really tight and is out now, and y'all should go listen to it. Like this project that you and Pioneer 11 put together, which I kind of feel like, like since we were talking about aggressively ethnically ambiguous, like I feel like To Operate This System does kind of bring things full circle in a sense, and because this reminds me a lot of that. Like just like in terms of like your bar structures. Like one thing I noticed about this project is that like it's like your structures are a little more, for lack of a better word, like traditional than I feel like you've been in the last few years. You know, like you're less they're less freewheeling. You're not like really testing the border. Like you're not testing the borders of like a bar or a stanza like you usually do. It's very like metered and very, I don't want to say rigid because it doesn't feel rigid, but it's very like you're kind of like coloring inside the lines a little more than you usually do. So I guess just like walk me through that and like working with 11 and like what you kind of came to do with this one.
Yeah, I've been saying it for a while and people like kind of don't. People think I'm just fucking around, but I'm like, no, I'm an experimental pop artist, you know? Just watch. And so I think that's the thing is, you know, dovetailing, you know, or like calling it back to that idea of the balance, the invitation. The lyrical intricacies are still there, I think, minus maybe, you know, the song about my cat lost in space. And she was almost lost today. Fucking cat.
Life imitating art type shit. Yeah.
You know, I think, yes, it's the interesting balance, the interesting, coloring in the lines, but in a way that I think, I don't know, just is like manipulating things that have been like refashioning stuff, remixing. I think it's the overall idea of just remixing, and like chopping and screwing limitations. And I think, you know, instinctually, I like my stuff to sound good. Even in my most dissonant moments, I think that there is a commitment to like, is this going to sound as good as it possibly can for what it's trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
And with this, I think I've been in a space where I went pure rap, like just bar for bar with Grapefruit Radio.
Also great, by the way.
Thank you. And honestly, I was working on Grapefruit Radio and Stalin Bollywood. There was a crazy ass punk rock project. While we were putting this together in the very like earliest sapling seed stages. And so I think, it represented a part of me that I've been trying to get out for a long time. And it just so happened that I had the burden of the music being taken off of me, while also being able to directly influence it. Because we jammed everything out. We made everything live. I played a lot of the synthesizers on it and programmed the drums. And while I was learning the clarinet, I put it on the record, which is like, it's just kind of trippy to think about learning by doing that way. Getting better just by like doing the thing. So yeah, we met over, you know, basically we started like the first jam right before COVID on my own. The title, like the first tracks on the sequence, on my own. That the instrumental came out fully fleshed, and I had like a freestyle vocal that I did over that in one session. And then I kind of took the stems, rearranged it, wrote the song more fleshed out. And definitely it had the signs. It was like super, you know, like auspicious. It was like, okay, this shit is going to be something, because I've been trying to express that level of musical openness that's been there from the start in my life, you know? And I feel like I'm really digging into an alternative space, alternative in the sense of, you know, the legacy of alternative rock and electronic, and trying to have, I feel like, I mean, Jeff said it, you know, when we were talking about the record. He was like, a lot of rappers try and do things that aren't rap, and they end up doing everything that they don't do well. So I still wanted to commit to like, I'm going to rap really well, but I'm going to show you that I can also do these other things really well that I haven't been doing simply because they would have been out of place, not because I couldn't do them. I had to figure out how to incorporate them. So it really is a project of fusion and of like really being tasteful and tactful, and just having a greater musical vocabulary, I think, because the literal vocabulary has always been there. The musical, it's just very exciting to have this musical vocabulary and feel like, you know, what you said about the indie rap pigeonhole, you know, it's like, I don't know, like there's a lot of cats whose music I like, but they can only make that kind of music. I am not that person. I will do literally everything. At first it was out of spite, and now it's just like I have to, because I've done so much already. Even working in one style, I feel like if I can be confident and egotistical, like I talk more in sometimes 2 songs on one record than a lot of people do over like 2 records.
Yeah.
And so I've been needing to like push out, because I've done a lot, and where we are in terms of media, music, etc., we have to put out and work and make so much, that I wanted to be like, okay, I'm still on track to keep like a record a year out at least, but I'm not going to make it procedural. And I think it just lined up. Like, we managed to fit it in. We managed to get it done. And like everything, you can ask specific questions about themes, but like everything, I just committed to it. I committed to it. I committed to like this feeling that I wanted to go a certain way. And committing to that also meant like sculpting a fucking robot for the cover and shit. You know, like I normally do. So yeah, I don't know if that is too much or too little. Probably too much. Probably just enough. Maybe.
There's no such thing as too much here. You know, like we're here to, you know, like this isn't like this isn't gonna get cut down. It's not like I gotta like get this into 600 words. I think you did a great job kind of putting that into perspective. And you know, like there's plenty of people who, you know, like there's plenty of people who are completely content to just like make the same music forever, and we love them for that, you know, because like they're very good at it. And you know, like not everybody needs to do like a Donald Glover soul epic on top of also being very good at rap music, you know. But like, you know, like you're the type of person who wants to explore and has the ability and the desire to explore musically, and that's great, you know. Like, and this sounds, and you know, like this is, you know, like you're singing on here and just like playing around with melody more, and not even just in like a rapper sort of way, but like you're like singing like for real. And you know, like that's, you know, like it adds a lot of textures that might not have been in your music otherwise. And you know, I like that. I think that makes this once again, it's not exactly challenging in terms of like, it's not like it's like some radical departure from anything else you've done before, you know, but it's different enough where it's like, okay, so you can do this, you know. And like I love that. I think that's dope. And on top of that, like, you know, you would just like mentioning this like like going back to necessity again of just like needing to keep up that pace. And you know, like just like you do so much, you know, like it's like between the music and your teaching and the painting and the poetry and all like the live performances you do, like, you know, it's like you said, it's exhausting, you know, like, but it's what we need to do to keep the lights on, you know, like this is what pays for life. And you know, things are only getting more expensive. That's once again whole other conversation. But just like to kind of bring this conversation full circle before I ask my final question, like as someone who does as much as you do and manages to, you know, be present you know, through all of it. Like, I normally hate asking advice questions, but like, do you have any advice for someone looking to get into this shit the way that you are into it? And just like a way to prepare people, because you know, like, things are rough right now for everyone who wants to be creative, everyone in general, but like specifically for people who want to be creative. Like, you know, just like, do you have any thoughts or advice for somebody who might want to do something, anything relating to what you do right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's no guarantee that anyone's going to be interested. Um, and so there's a freedom in no one caring about what you do. And so yeah, I would just say, first thing I would say is kind of just do what you want. Um, because playing to some level of expectation of particular feedback, um, I think that's radically changing in its nature. What feedback is, what success is, what something resonating is. Um, and I don't know, I guess, yeah, like not think about, just do it. Just do what you want to do, like the way you want to do it. And that is very cliche, but true.
Yeah.
Um, I had something else I said once, and it was, I think there's a balance that people have to have between um like being intentional about everything you do and finishing, trying to start something with the idea that it is important and you want to finish it, and also being able to let things go. um I think having a level of understanding of what you're putting together, and this is like a craftsman's idea, craftsperson's idea, what you're putting together has um, its own particularities, and how in there, think about how in there, your the system in place, or not the system, but the different qualities are working. It's not going to be the same all throughout everything you do. So the learning, um, committing to kind of learning the quality of certain things and being relative in that. There's a relativeness to that. Not everything is going to sound the same way. Make sure your references are wide, really wide. Um, and there's, maybe not uh, an over determination of what is uh, like the a finished idea, a perfected idea. So balancing the meticulousness with a level of like spontaneity, I think is really important. I don't know how that sounded. I felt like I was just like being really, really vague and abstract. Um, but yeah, I think you have to definitely commit to being um, moments of meticulousness after something is first birthed, and then finding ways to zoom back out and looking at it anew. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's hard. I had a much better idea when someone asked me that question a few months ago, but um, I think there's a freedom in no one asking you for anything,
Yeah.
and everyone's trying to sound everyone's references are becoming more and more tagged with metadata and easy limitations and borders, and just to remember that that shit is culturally constructed and it's not going to last forever, ideally. Whether AI will have something to say about that, I don't know. That might be like a 300 level class, not a 100 level class.
Facts.
So I hope somewhere in there you can even chop up my answer between my ums and my ahs and my shit if you want.
I'll figure it out, but I think there's enough to parse out of there that's you know, like it's important to just kind of embrace your spontaneity and just, you know, just like embracing spontaneity and you know, like having faith in like your own perspective is important, especially as, you know, like someone who's, you know, like not necessarily attached to anything like bigger, you know, like that's like, you know, you know, like that freedom is both a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. Like creatively, it's very much a blessing. You know, it's all over. But like, no, I like that answer. I think that's great. You know, it's like it's tough out here, but like not knowing is also a reward in its own way. It's very strange, but you know, like yeah.
Showing
And
up,
to
you know, showing up in person when you can.
yeah,
Not everyone lives in a place where they can show up, but just be in the space.
that's great. Yeah, nah, yeah, like being, and yeah, like you're right about that. I tell people that as often as I can. Just like if you're able to be like, you know, like if somebody you like comes to your area, like go, you know, like go be in the space, connect with them if you feel comfortable, because like I know a lot of people who would rather just like go to a show and see it and then not talk to people after, and that's fine too, but just like being there and contributing, like contributing can just be like being a presence, contributing could be buying something, contributing could be having a conversation after the show if a person's willing to do that, you know, like you know, like there's a lot of steps to this, and you're like whether you're making art or just like, you know, enjoying it, like there's like presence is an important thing, you know, like that's
Yeah.
it, like it really does it's made all the difference for me, you know, so you know, it helps to be a presence, because then, you know, people want you around to an extent. It depends on the type of presence you are, obviously, but like yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely. And to end this formally, um, Rhys Langston, if your life was a movie, what would it be about?
Oh man, I feel like it'd be written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, probably. Um, I think it would be about like all the little moments in which like small things turn into big things slipping through the cracks, like something in an avalanche is that way. I don't know
Mhm.
what the exact plot would be, but I feel like I noticed a lot of that. I notice little things that like kind of trail out. Um, and I think it would be like, yeah, like maybe a more like Charlie Kaufman meets My Dinner with Andre type shit, where just, um, you know, a balance of kind of like comedy of errors with really good dialogue. Um, yeah, yeah. Maybe a story of mistaken identity, like like a mistaken identity that becomes that someone embodies and flips on its head. I know
Mhm.
it's like, you probably get more answers like, it would be, about a heist or something like that. I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, I feel like all those themes in there that might actually I might just start writing a screenplay right now.
Hey,
just not being John Malkovich, being Rhys Langston, just entering my own mind.
So in that case, where would the portal dump you? Like I'm inside your head for 15 minutes. Where do I end up after I get booted out? Because in being John Malkovich, it was on like the side of the Jersey Turnpike, which is very funny to me because I know that exact area because like I live in Jersey, so like I know that exact area people were getting dumped off at. I've driven by there a couple times.
I'd say you'd probably be dumped in the middle of a mall outside of a place that used to be EV Games and now is like a front for like, some influencer cosmetic brand.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good and so specific. And yeah, I can see it. I fuck with that. That's great. Yo.
Or maybe
oh no, sorry.
I was gonna say maybe like inside the last Games Workshop location in the United States. Still all slimy, dumped in the middle of a match of Warhammer or something.
Incredible. Either that or like you ever been to like a Wizards of the Coast store before?
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, one of the malls near my crib used to have a Wizards of the Coast store. It's a Journeys sneaker shop now, which is really fun. But
your head's one.
Yeah, hey man, fuck it. I'm one of those too, so fuck it.
Yeah.
Multitudes. But yeah, multitudes. Fucking Rhys, this was great, man. Jesus Christ, thank you. Like we were really cooking with grease. This is so much fun. Like I knew this one was gonna be great, but like this was fantastic. Like there's a lot to chew on here, and I think people are gonna like this as much as I did. So thank you again, honestly.
No, thank you. I needed honestly a conversation to remind myself of certain essential truths to me, So thank you for providing that.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. We're all like this is all just conversation is I can't believe I'm about to say this like this. Conversation is inspiration.
Yeah.
Rainbow over the head. Y'all can't see us, but yeah, rainbow over the head for that. Thanks for listening. Shout out to y'all for making it this far. And shout out to all the Black people listening too, because y'all really impeccable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend to come through next time. 1.